In a golden era of sumo, the Hanada family rose as standard-bearers of Japanese essence and a charisma that made them national idols. Their fraternal rivalry between brothers, laden with tensions and family dramas, added an epic nuance to their ascent. On the Sumo Spirit channel, we bring you the story of the most important family of sumo. Before the names Wakanohana II and Takanohana II echoed through sumo halls, there was one man who started it all. Born in 1950, Takanohana Kenshi, or as he was known in the ring, Futagoyama, was the spark that lit the fire of the Hanada sumo dynasty. But wait, was he born into sumo greatness? Not quite. In 1965, a young Hanada joined the Futagoyama stable, founded just 3 years earlier by his own brother. The former yokozuna Wakanohana Kanji I, a wrestler, won 10 top division Yusho titles and, at just around 220 pounds, was one of the lightest yokozuna in history, proof that technique could trump size. Takanohana Kenshi made his professional debut at just 15, and by 18, he reached the elite Makuchi division, the youngest ever at the time. And get this, he only weighed 220 pounds. That's light in sumo standards, yet he stood toe-to-toe with giants. In 1969, he took on the name that would become legendary, Takanohana. 2 years later, in 1971, he did the unthinkable. He became the last man ever to defeat the mighty yokozuna Taiho. By 1972, after back-to-back runner-up finishes, he reached the second highest rank in sumo, ozeki. He stayed there for 50 tournaments, over 8 years. A record that stood until 2007. In these years, his 2 sons were born, future sumo legends, Masaru Hanada and Koji Hanada. In March of 1975, he claimed his first ever top division championship after defeating the dominant yokozuna Kitanumi in a playoff, to the delight of an uproarious crowd who appreciated the contrast in both the Rikishi's physiques and overall charisma. But if he was so good, why wasn't he ever promoted to yokozuna? Here's the twist. Despite his skill and popularity, he was even called the Prince of Sumo for his good looks. He could never consistently beat stars like Kitanumi and Wajima. And unlike them, he could never put on enough weight to match their power. Still, fans loved him more than many actual yokozuna. In 1981, after 2 defeats to rising star Chiyonofuji, his own mentee, Takanohana hung up his mawashi. The two were often compared, and Takanohana had been something of a mentor to Chiyonofuji, advising him to quit smoking in order to gain weight, something Takanohana himself had never achieved. But this wasn't the end, it was just the beginning. He became the head of the Futagoyama stable and trained his 2 sons, Wakanohana Masaru and Takanohana Koji, both of whom reached the ultimate rank, yokozuna. Let that sink in. 1 father, 2 sons, 3 sumo legends. After retiring, he fully assumed the role of oyakata, coach, and his vision was clear: to preserve sumo traditions while forging wrestlers capable of dominating the modern era. Takanohana Kenshi wasn't just a sumo wrestler, he was the architect of an empire. But what happens when your own sons become your legacy? And rivalry runs in the family? Stay tuned. From childhood, Futagoyama immersed them in the world of sumo, instilling in them a fierce work ethic and deep respect for the sport. What if your biggest rival was your own brother? And what if the world expected you to carry a dynasty on your back? January 20th, 1971. The Hanada legacy welcomes its next heir, Wakanohana Masaru, later known as Wakanohana II. The eldest of the brothers, he stepped into the dohyo professionally in March 1988, under the watchful eye of his father, the former ozeki, Takanohana Kenshi. But guess what? He wasn't alone. His younger brother, Takanohana Koji, joined at the exact same time. Together, they entered their father's training stable. But family ties? Left at the door. They were instructed to call their father not dad, but oyakata, coach. They left the family home, slept beside recruits, trained like warriors. So, who would rise first? Despite being the older brother, Wakanohana III had a slower start. He lacked the raw power and mass of his sibling. His brother weighed 352 pounds, and he 295 pounds. But what did he have? Agility, precision, technique, a thinking man's sumo. In September 1990, at just 19 years old, he entered the elite Makuuchi division. But in January 1993, while still just a mega Shira, he watched his brother ascend to Ozeki. Pressure much? But Wakanohana responded with fire. In the very next tournament, he stunned the sumo world. 14 wins, 1 loss. His first Yusho, or championship. His technical style was a combination of agility, precision, and strength, influenced by his father's teachings. Though not as bulky as other rikishi of his time, Wakanohana compensated with refined technique and a notable ability to adapt to heavier opponents. And by 1993, the impossible happened. Both Hanada brothers were Ozeki. For the first time in sumo history, 2 brothers held the rank simultaneously. But their rivalry wasn't just symbolic. In the Kyushu Basho 1995, Wakanohana won his second championship, defeating his now yokozuna brother in a tiebreaker. It was the only time they would face off competitively. After a struggle for grip dominance, Wakanohana advanced, pushing his younger brother back and throwing him down with a Shita teenage. Both rikishi finished the tournament with identical 12-3 records. This was the second Yusho of the Ozeki's career, and a few years later, he would become a yokozuna like his brother. Then came 1998, his crowning year. 2 tournaments, 2 victories, back-to-back titles. And finally, the moment everyone had waited for, he was promoted to yokozuna, becoming the 66th in history. And just like that, the Hanada brothers became the first pair of siblings to reach sumo's ultimate rank. His best bouts? Against Akebono in Hatsubasho 1997. The elder brother also faced the Hawaiian giant, using a low position to achieve an inside grip on the mawashi, seeking his best opportunity. He found it by throwing Akebono down with a Shita teenage, sending him to the ground, and against Koto Nishiki in Natsu 1993. Both rikishi went all out from the tachi-ai, engaging in a struggle to see who would apply the first technique. Wakanohana managed to wrap his arm around Koto Nishiki's right, place his leg over Koto Nishiki's knee, and lunge on top in a soto gake to win the match. Thus, he was promoted to the rank of Seiki Wake and finished with a 10-3 record. But while history was made, Wakanohana's time as a yokozuna was short. Injuries continued to plague him, and he couldn't add more championships to his name. Still, with 5 Yusho, his career was far from ordinary. Wakanohana III proved that sumo isn't just about size, it's about spirit. His relationship with his father was marked by deep respect, but also by the pressure to meet the high expectations of a patriarch who had been a prominent figure in sumo. With his younger brother, he shared a complex relationship of rivalry and mutual support. On the other hand, born on August 12, 1972, Takanohana Koji was the youngest of the Hanada brothers, but the most dominant of them all. Takanohana Koji, later known as Takanohana II, wasn't just a prodigy, he was a revolution. He debuted in March 1988, alongside his brother Wakanohana III in the Futagoyama-Beya stable. So how fast did he rise? Well, brace yourself. At just 20 years and 5 months, he became the youngest Ozeki in history. And by November 1995, after back-to-back championships, he was promoted to yokozuna at 22. The 65th yokozuna, the 3rd youngest ever. But his road to the top? Far from smooth. His early years were shadowed by the dominance of a foreign titan, Akebono. Every time Takanohana neared the summit, Akebono was there, blocking the way. By 1994, Takanohana had 6 top division championships, but not a single one back-to-back. That mattered. Sumo tradition demanded consecutive Yusho for promotion. And when the Japan Sumo Association nominated him, the Yokozuna Deliberation Council rejected him. The first time in 25 years they denied a candidate. Ouch. But how did he respond? Not with complaints. 2 perfect 15-0 tournaments in a row, an undeniable claim to glory, and finally, promotion in 1994. As a yokozuna, Takanohana became a national phenomenon. He wasn't just a wrestler, he was a cultural icon. Nijuni Yusho. That's right, 22. His fighting style? Ferocious. Director? Unshakable. He was a master of Migi Yotsu, the right-hand inside grip that let him dominate close-range bouts. His go-to technique? Yorikiri, the force out. Simple, brutal, effective. Over half his wins came this way. He also had a mean uwa teenage, the overarm throw that flipped giants. Just ask Asashoryu. His style could be seen in his best fight, against Akebono in Kyushu 1994. Despite being at a size disadvantage, Takanohana demonstrated his brute strength by pushing back the giant Akebono on more than one occasion while applying a mawashi grip. Similarly, the Hawaiian used his reach to push the Japanese, who took the opportunity to throw him out of the dohyo with an uwa teenage. They were brothers, champions, and icons, but after retirement, their paths took a turn. Scandal, separation, a family divided. What was the relationship between them? The joint training of the Hanada brothers allowed them to support each other in their development as rikishi, sharing knowledge and experiences that strengthened their skills. However, the competitive nature of professional sumo generated an implicit rivalry between them, fueled by the high expectations of their family and the Japanese public. The personalities of the Hanada brothers were notably different, which was reflected both in their fighting styles and in their public lives. Wakanohana III was reserved, technical, and methodical, preferring a strategic approach in the dohyo. On the other hand, Takanohana II was extroverted, aggressive, and charismatic, making him a fan favorite and a prominent media figure. These differences were kept under control during their careers, but after their retirements, significant family tensions emerged. For years, the media sold a pristine image: Wakanohana, warm, charismatic; Takanohana, reserved, stoic. Together, the perfect balance. But in truth, the brothers barely spoke. Their family problems started in 1998, when Takanohana, already a yokozuna, developed a liver disorder. Desperate for healing, he turned to a controversial physiotherapist, Toshiro Tomita. Tomita's influence was deep, too deep. Takanohana began to distance himself from his family. His father, alarmed; his brother, shut out. Just as Wakanohana reached the pinnacle, claiming his yokozuna title, the brothers had never been further apart. In the early 2000s, both brothers left the ring. Wakanohana reinvented himself as a celebrity, even dabbling in American football. Takanohana stayed behind, taking over the stable, guarding the sumo legacy. But then came 2005, May 30th, 2005. Their father, Takanohana I, died of cancer. What followed wasn't mourning, it was a war. Takanohana, still inside the Sumo Association, demanded to be the chief mourner. His logic? I remained loyal to sumo. He left for TV. But tradition said otherwise. Wakanohana was the elder son, and so he led the ceremony. The divide became public, very public. Although Wakanohana did not accede to his brother's demand to be the chief mourner, he renounced his right to his father's inheritance. Renouncing his inheritance would not be enough to make peace with Takanohana, and since then, the two brothers became strangers, almost never speaking. The once powerful Hanada dynasty, which had dominated the sumo world for nearly 5 decades, was left shattered. Then, another fracture: their mother. Takanohana condemned her for an extramarital affair that had led to divorce in 2001. She had left the stable, changed her name back to Noriko Fujita, and wrote a book and gave interviews. Spoke truths no one dared say out loud. Takanohana never forgave her. They rarely spoke again. During the 1990s, sumo experienced its golden era, largely thanks to the Hanada brothers' massive popularity. Both became cultural icons, with Takanohana II standing out through media appearances, a nationally televised wedding, and constant commercial exposure. Wakanohana III, though more reserved, also helped shape the public image of the yokozuna. Their fame drew new fans and aspiring wrestlers, turning sumo into a national cultural phenomenon. The Takanohana mania era reflected Japan's pride and the sport's modernization.